I didn't hear what you said.
Because they believed he was being blasphemous by saying that he was God.
Well, there's only two options, right? He's either God or it is blasphemy.
Right.
And far more people saw it as blasphemy than saw him as God. Yes.
A big part of it too is in the resurrection. If he wasn't God, it was God raising him. Like, there's like some people think that if they're not the same person, then Jesus is by God. But because Jesus was God himself, he raised himself.
What else? Yes.
Otherwise, it's not the Trinity because they're separate identities.
Right. There is no Trinity if Jesus Christ is not God. I said I wasn't going to talk about this in this class because it has to do with a real person that I know, but I'm not going to give any details about the person. And so there's someone that I know that is very spiritual, but is not a follower of Christ, and he calls Jesus a way shower. Jesus isn't the way; he is a way shower. He's one of many who show the way to God. It's that idea of there are lots of paths to God, and you might say Jesus is, but it might be Buddha for me, or it might be Judaism, or it might, and there are lots of ways to God. And I think that that's one of the main reasons to realize that Jesus is God. He's not just a way shower. He did show the way, right? But he is himself the way to God. It isn't that he just shows you the way. He is the way. And he is the only way. And I think if we were in a place where there was only one exit and there was a fire, we would be grateful for that one way out, right? And we wouldn't be angry that there were more ways out, right? We would be thankful for that one. Now, it probably would have been wise to have another way out, but that's a story for a different day. So yeah, he is more than just a good teacher. In fact, tomorrow we'll talk about how if he's not God, he isn't a good teacher at all, and he's more than a rabbi. He is God. What do you say to people who believe because I'm a good person, that's enough? Why? What are they wrong about?
Because got him there. That's convincing if I was me.
We haven't even named this person. How do you know they're not a good person?
Oh, I don't care. Good person. But probably not, but that's my job. Can you go to McDonald's, make all the money disappear from the register and appear in your pocket just by being a good person? No. Same way you can't do something else impossible by being a good person.
Remove your cap.
Well, if you can do that, you're going to prison. So I'm not sure that that's the best.
Well, the idea is like more just like you can't do one thing that's impossible. Like if you can't fly by being a good person, or you can't do other things. What about being a good person makes it so that you get into heaven? Like it has no power behind being a good person, regardless.
Well, and that's what most people believe, though. They believe that all we need is 51%. Even though you wouldn't be thrilled with a 51% on a test, we just need 51.49. That's it. And there's some cosmic scale out there that is keeping track. But we're talking about not just every deed, every word, every thought. I'm not sure there's anyone out there that would get to 51%. Yes,
Also, I mean, we talked about this a lot last year, but
ladies,
like,
ladies.
like no one's really a good person. Like we all do things that are bad. So you can say, "Oh, I'm a good person" because you do good things, but you also do bad things. And if they're talking like in reference to getting to heaven, heaven is a holy, perfect place where nothing is wrong, which means nothing can be bad. We all do bad things. So none of us, even if we're good by our standard, we aren't good enough.
And that's so true. But how do we ever know? How do we? It's like giving someone a test with all questions that you don't understand, that you've never been taught, that you've never even heard about, and expecting you to do well. That how do you know you've got 51%? You don't. You can't. Right.
There were people, people I've met who assume that they're in school or have a deserted person. They assume that they're going to go to heaven, like y'all said, heaven's a perfect place. They assume that they'll go to heaven because of their current state. And so they will be still in that perfect state once they go to heaven. They believe that, like, oh, the people who do good things are going to go to the good place where people do good things all the time. And it's more of just pride, saying like, oh, I could be in heaven and do perfect things all the time and just live with all the rest of the world who also do good things all the time. And they don't think that they need to be changed by God to get to heaven or to have a relationship with Him. They don't feel any sort of humility or need or desire to be right with God. They just want to be themselves.
Yeah, that describes a lot of people, right? Yes, Aiden.
Like you were saying, when people are really given like the answers or even anything to kind of base the idea on, there's normally no parameters for what good means. Like no one has any grounds. Like especially when you get into territory of like, oh, is homosexuality wrong? I mean, some people, most people would say yes, but some people think that racism is a good thing. Really crazy people do. And so if those people exist, well, obviously we need somebody to say, okay, this is right, that's wrong. But if there's no one to say that, then what's even the point of believing that good and evil exists? You have no basis for it.
This is going to give you a little bit of intel into my political leanings. I don't think you'll be shocked. So this is a long, long time ago. Josh is little, I don't know, 5, 6 years old. I can't even remember what year it was, but we're on our way to church. And he just out of the blue says, and this is at the time that Bill Clinton was running for re-election. And he just out of the blue says, so tell me again why we don't like Clinton. And so I told him some things in kind of 6-year-old language, 5-year-old language, didn't go into the infidelity or anything like that. And I got done and he said, Bill Clinton shouldn't be president. He should be in jail. I mean, he's not Christian, he's not Jewish, and what do you have after Christian and Jewish? Bad guy. That was the world according to Josh, that there's Jews, there's Christians, and bad guys, and that's it. But the truth of it is that we are all bad people. All of us are. None of us is deserving of heaven, which is why Jesus is the only way, which is why Jesus came to die, which is why he had to die, so that we could live in heaven forever. And so this idea that that I'm a good person is an illusion. And I remind myself of that every single day, not by saying, you're a bad person, Amy, but by my own behavior. I remind myself. And then the next question is, can you now answer the common question of why good people can go to hell? How can we be sure? Let's talk about this. How can we be sure that Jesus is God? Because we already kind of adjudicated that. How can we be sure that Jesus is God?
The resurrection.
The resurrection. Resurrection. If it's true, it's all true. If it's false, it's all false. But we've spent a good deal of time, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, talking about the resurrection, and that's the way it should be, because it's that important. All of eternity turns on that one event. And I love what I read to you last week about Gary Habermas coming back to him and saying, "Did I raise my son? Did I raise my son? Did I raise my son?" And I'll tell you, that's a really good thing to ask yourself if you're doubting, and you will doubt. Everyone doubts. Your Bible teacher doubts sometimes. Everyone doubts. And it's a good thing to remind yourself, was Jesus raised from the dead? Yeah, I think I know that the resurrection is the linchpin of all of history, all of eternity, and we can be sure of that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to a chart at the end of your. Nope, it's not there. That's in it. It is a comparison of comparison of world religions. 116. And they're just going with the five primary religions of the world: Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and it goes through a number of Christian doctrines, and not only what the Christian answer to that is, but what the answer to that is in Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Judaism. So follow along with me as we talk about this, and they give scriptural support if you're interested in knowing, about the Trinity or original sin or anything like that. You can go to those passages, read them. But the first question is who is Jesus? Is Jesus a way shower, or is he the way? So Hinduism doesn't give any recognition of any kind to Jesus, and nor does Buddhism. They are a much less doctrinal. They are much less doctrinal religions. They're more experiential. They're more Eastern in nature than Western. Just the facts and truth and things like that. Islam, he is one of the prophets. There are many prophets in Islam. Muhammad was the final and most important prophet, but many biblical characters are prophets in Islam, including Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and Jesus is one as well. But Muhammad is the most important prophet in Islam. And then in Judaism, I don't like this answer. I know it's true, but it just doesn't answer the question. Rabbinic teaching holds that there must be two messiahs: the son of Joseph who would die, and the son of David who would establish the kingdom on earth. And of course, that's Jesus, but they don't recognize that it's Jesus. They're still waiting for Messiah. And frankly, even back in the 1980s, when I was teaching world religions at Millard North, and I brought in Rabbi Brooks every year to talk to my students about it. A good number of Jews are not awaiting a Messiah anymore. There are some more conservative Jews that are, but many have given up on that kind of idea that the Messiah is something else, like Israel something else. But they would say that Jesus was a Jew and a good teacher, but he was not God and he was not Messiah. And then Trinity, I don't know why they call it triunity, but the Trinity. So God is kind of an it in both Hinduism and Buddhism. So there's no understanding of the Holy Spirit in Hinduism and Buddhism. And most Buddhist sects, they can be, Hinduism and Buddhism can be polytheistic or pantheistic or atheistic or just kind of a more of a philosophy than a religion. And both Hindus and Buddhists will say, especially Buddhists will say, we don't worship the Buddha. They have idols of him everywhere, and they give him food and they dress him up. Same with the idols of Hinduism, and they pray to them. So I believe that is worship, right? But they say they don't. And then in Islam, there is only one God, and that's Allah. And then in Judaism, there's only one God, that is Yahweh. And then everyone has an eternal spirit. We all live eternally somewhere, or when we're dead, we're just dead and we're done. So Hinduism believes that, but it's different. It's in reincarnation. And Hinduism believes that you get reborn and you die, and you're reborn and you die, and you're reborn and you die, and then finally when you are at the end of that cycle, you just go poof into the universe, and you don't have any sentient sort of existence there. You just poof into the universe. And then the Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, claimed that people don't have souls. So there's nothing that he would say. Most Buddhists believe in reincarnation, but when that cycle ends, you just you're just done. And then yes, for both Judaism and Islam, that we have an eternal spirit. And then born a lost soul is the doctrine of original sin, that we aren't sinners because we sin. We sin because we are sinners. We are born with a sin nature, and that is a Christian doctrine. And if you don't believe it, go into any nursery anywhere, and from not even before they can speak, talk, walk, any of that, they're going to scream until they get what they want. Because it's the only way that they can tell you something's wrong and I want it to be right, right? And the world revolves around these little 8-pound babies that you bring home, hopefully 8 pounds. And so they in Judaism it rejects that, but Christianity says that we are born in sin. Everyone who ever lived has sinned, except Jesus. So show me someone who hasn't sinned, that's lived more than a minute, and I will, or maybe I'll up it to an hour. Then I might consider it. But I think everyone who's ever lived has a sin nature. Yeah.
Without logic, would you say that babies who die before they're born go to heaven? Like I would assume they would because of how amazing God is.
Yes.
Also,
The answer to your question is yes.
yeah.
And I believe that's true of children that are not old enough to understand, but I don't know for sure about that.
But isn't it acceptance of Jesus and it's like there's this Corrie ten Boom entry in her journal where she's talking to someone and they're arguing that you don't need to share the gospel with little kids because they don't understand. They aren't ready to understand, so you don't need God, and that God will just let them in heaven because the little ones are safe. And she tells the story of like a father tells his son to go get the sheep inside, and then the boy takes all the adults inside and leaves the little ones out in the pasture. And the dad's like, "What are you doing? The wolves are gonna get the little ones. Why did you leave them?" He's like, "Oh, the little ones are safe."
Yeah, but there is a time when children can't understand,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I'm talking about. They can't. And I mean, we talked about this last year, and you wrote a paper on it. And I told you where I come down on this, that I am content. Usually it's with people who've never had the opportunity to hear the name of Christ. I am content to keep that in God's hands because He knows the exact right thing, and it will be fair and it will be right. And I don't have to figure that out. That's not my job to figure that out because I'm not God. So He'll do it the exact right thing with everyone. And in most cases, it's we're the ones that are doing that. Okay, so Judah, did we do Judaism already? Is that what we were on? Rejects the doctrine of original sin, saying that sin is an act, not a state. So it's something we do, but it's not who we are. We aren't sinful. We're good people who do bad things. We're not bad people who do bad things. And then salvation, Hindus is a works system. They all are work systems except for Christianity. And forgiveness of sin does not fit into the picture of karma. Your punishment is that you are reincarnated lower. If you do good things, then you're reincarnated higher until you eventually go up, and then go poof. And then in Buddhism, it's all about self-effort. And I wrote a whole big thing on the board with you earlier in the year about right effort, right thinking, right talk, right action, all those things that you do, and that's works. That's works. Salvation by works. And then in Islam, after the resurrection, each man's deeds will be weighed to determine his destiny, heaven or hell. So that's the cosmic scale, right? So if you're 51 and 49, then you're good. And that's what a lot of people believe, not just the Muslims. And then Jews would say man does not need redemption, does not need to be redeemed. Repentance, turning back to God, is all that is needed when one fails to live according to the law. And then the sacred books, there's a number of them in both in Hinduism and Buddhism. And the Buddhist scriptures and sayings are attributed to Siddhartha Gautama, but we don't know for sure. And then the Quran is the main book. There's some others of Islam, but the Quran, which was said to be given to Muhammad by God, or the words were given to him, then that's their most important book. And then this is a little bit confusing because it says the Torah, which is part of the Old Testament. But it's the first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. But it's the whole, what we would call the Old Testament is sacred to them. And then also the Talmud, which the Talmud is commentaries about, by ancient rabbis, about the Old Testament, what we call the Old Testament. They would just call it Testament. So any questions on any of this? Okay, so remember that you will have your lesson 5 and 6. We'll do one more thing tomorrow. we'll do the lesson 5, 6 test on Friday. And you will have your first quiz on next Thursday. So we're getting there. Those of you, I'll say this. Those of you that